Personal injury marketing is really interesting because it's not like you're marketing a really cool tech product that people want. You're marketing to people often at the worst day of their lives. It's usually something really, really traumatic. I saw that as using my skill and craft as a way to actually connect people with lawyers who are going to help them. That's how I landed here at MacArthur Law Firm. I built a lot of our systems from scratch. We had an SEO vendor that was helping us with the website, but the tactics were a little bit outdated, particularly considering AI.
Want to attract and convert more leads? Want to learn how digital PR, branding, and SEO can establish and build your brand identity? Welcome to the Market Movers Building Brands and Links with Linkify podcast. We answer these questions and help you ramp up your brand visibility and credibility. Let's cut through the noise and make your business the talk of the town. We're your hosts, Nick and Chris. Let's get this show on the road.
Welcome to the Market Movers podcast. Today, I am joined by Trizna Baños, Director of Marketing at MacArthur Law Firm, and we are breaking down how legal growth is evolving from hyper-local interactive CTV on streaming platforms to building an organic and AI-first ecosystem that compounds trust. Welcome to the show, Trizna.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Chris.
Okay, well, why don't you first off start by telling us how did you get involved in marketing and then your journey to becoming a director of marketing at MacArthur Law Firm?
So I've been in marketing for 13 years. I started at Red Bull, so field marketing, which was super duper interesting. Red Bull, as you know, is a global brand and it's a premium brand as well. And so the positioning for a premium brand is quite different than kind of any other brand. And so that kind of piqued my interest. From there, I moved on to doing sort of intake and things of that nature at a law firm. It was through a contact. I wanted to try it out. And I kind of got into marketing because the law firm that I was at, it's a boutique catastrophic injury law firm. And this was way back, probably 8 years ago. And they were doing a lot of outreach for Spanish-speaking clients. So Spanish being my first language, I would look at it and I was like, guys, we need to talk to these writers because no one who speaks Spanish is understanding this. It was a blend of terrible legalese and really bad translations. Google Translate has come very, very far since then. But anyway, I started off kind of correcting the Spanish marketing and I saw that it was an interesting opportunity. And then I was recruited by a personal injury tech company that was trying to revolutionize how people handle the majority of injury cases, which the majority of injury cases are not going to be those huge cases. And now they're actually kind of doing work with AI. But from there, I transitioned into more of a leadership role. So that was a client communication specialist role. And then I moved on to do it was business law. That was kind of my first venture as a director of marketing. And then from there, I wanted to come back to personal injury because it just, personal injury marketing is really interesting because it's not like you're marketing a really cool tech product that people want. You're marketing to people often at the worst day of their lives. It's usually something really, really traumatic. And so I saw that as using my skill and craft as a way to actually connect people with lawyers who are going to help them. And so that's how I landed here at MacArthur Law Firm. But, I built a lot of our systems from scratch. There was a previous in-house person. They were here for just a little bit, but there were really no systems in place. We had an SEO vendor that was helping us with the website, but the tactics were a little bit outdated, particularly considering AI. It's more about the quality of the content and content that's actually useful for people. So anyway, that's a little
great.
bit of a roundabout way, but
Super interesting. I think the looking at the Spanish language content is really interesting. And I think you said you started about 13 years ago. Oh no, how long have you been with MacArthur now?
With MacArthur, I've been here for almost 2 years.
Okay. So we did have AI and the translations come a long way, but I think that in of itself is like something which is often overlooked in marketing. It's like, well, it shouldn't be, but knowing your audience and not having the correct translations or meaning or tone behind that content marketing strategy for that specific audience, I imagine was hugely detrimental. And you probably saw pretty quick gains when you addressed that. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, I would say so. And it took a long time in developing. So with legal marketing in particular, you want to kind of strike a balance between something that provides substance from a legal standpoint without being too legalese, because you want people to be able to understand it and actually find that information useful.
Okay. So, MacArthur, now, what would you say, before we dive into strategy and all that good stuff, what would you say is your biggest lead gen channel now? And is that different to what it was when you first started with the firm?
You know what? To be frank, yes. When I first started with the firm, we were very heavily referral focused.
Mm-hmm.
Referrals from attorneys, previous clients, and just folks who kind of knew us in the community. And we were getting some leads from the website. Now, fixing the website issues, having more presence on social media in a consistent way. I'm talking 2 to 4 posts a week and, not just video. All of that in combination has been a huge lead generation source for us. Just last year, we had over 500 leads that came in from marketing, so inclusive of the website, Google, social media, and now we recently launched an interactive CTV ad to really kind of bolster that and play into that just on a different channel. And that's been super helpful in terms of lead generation as well. And they're pretty good. The qualified rate from those marketing leads sits at about 22%.
Okay.
So, a little over one in 5 of those leads are good leads that are coming in.
Yeah.
And ChatGPT as well, actually. So looking at some of the tools, Ahrefs is pretty helpful with that. We've gotten some ChatGPT leads as well. And, to figure out exactly how to appear on ChatGPT was a little bit of a mystery even just, 2 years ago. But now we're making a lot of use of like listicles,
Mm.
but from trusted sources. So super lawyers, best lawyers, and really just kind of putting that out everywhere on the website has been, a huge game changer.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, loads to unpack there. I definitely want to dive into this CTV interactive thing because I imagine a lot of folks listening to this won't even heard of that. So I'm really interested to dive into that. Okay, you mentioned listicles. Let's definitely look at that. Let's start with ChatGPT. I did want to know sort of what the biggest distribution of lead gen looked like within that organic bucket, whether or not it was Google, social. I imagine AI is a smaller slither of that pie, which is to be expected. But let's look at listicles in terms of an AI visibility strategy. Lots of talk on this, lots of abilities to manipulate. We saw the re-release of Dig, which was a big social platform with like a huge authority, and I myself posted a post about best digital PR agency on Dig, and it ranked, and we were like #1 in ChatGPT for 2 weeks until they took the post down. So there's loads of opportunities for leveraging the authority of other websites in terms of listicles. We're also seeing some concern with listicle abuse on first-party sites, so on your own site, doing too many listicles as well. And in fact, I did see something about legal concerns as well, about like saying that you're the best in certain things or product comparisons. Anyway, third-party listicles is what you mentioned. This is probably the safest bet on trusted sources. What did that strategy look like? How are you identifying those? Is it simple as going to ChatGPT and seeing what the sources are, identifying the listicles, and then reaching out? How does that strategy look? And is that an ongoing strategy that you're implementing as well?
Yeah. So to be completely honest, when it comes to listicles and lawyers, there are a ton out there. But really, you want to focus on something that has a decent domain rating,
Mm-hmm.
and something that has good peer reviews, particularly for lawyers, because there is kind of a sense of, oh, you pay to play. And there are definitely some that, folks get there by paying a certain amount. But for the ones that we were looking at, specifically super lawyers, best lawyers, and Forbes actually has been quite helpful. Forbes is a little separate. We'll get to that in a moment. But in terms of the attorney listicles, a big part of that really is doing good work. I mean, some of it, the lawyers here, they do a lot of work with the various trial lawyer associations and just involvement in the community. But a big part of it is results as well. So communicating the results that you've obtained to these various listicles, if you will, in your domain. So specifically for personal injury and legal marketing, there's different ways to kind of optimize each of the profiles on these websites. So again, putting up a really good photograph, adding some details about the work that you do, getting some reviews on there as well. That's very helpful. But then making the most of that. So the lists they come out in print. Sometimes they come out on the website as well, and the Super Lawyers or Best Lawyers website. But then taking that and putting it into your website, into your social media, and kind of blasting it everywhere so that the internet knows exactly who you are and the great results that you've achieved. So as far as how exactly to get on there, again, just really optimizing each of those platforms. So for Super Lawyers and Best Lawyers, AVO, you're able to log in there and just, again, input information, input data. So that's helpful. There's also a peer review component. So, sharing with your peers exactly what you do, and, ABS, always be selling, when you're out in various networking events and things of that nature. Just, I guess what I'm trying to say is it starts in real life. And securing good results in real life, and then translating that into these various platforms in an optimized way.
Okay.
And in a way that's consistent with your brand. Sorry, Chris.
And are you like more focused on Best Lawyers listicles when they're referring to individual lawyers or law firms? Like if I was going to go inside of ChatGPT and I'd had a personal injury accident in Atlanta, and I'm like, start talking to the LLM. I say, hey, look, I've had this accident. Could I be entitled to any sort of compensation? And they're like, yeah, you could be. Okay, then Doug, tell me, like, are most people asking like, who's the best personal injury lawyer in Atlanta, or which is the best personal injury law firm in Atlanta? Which one of those two is more sort of focus for you?
I'd say the individual lawyers. So
Okay.
people looking, when they're Googling, it's who's the best personal injury lawyer in X city. And so that's why Best Lawyers is kind of interesting, because it's got that superlative in the name. And also Super Lawyers. Super Lawyers has a super high domain authority, and, being in good graces with Super Lawyers has been helpful. But to answer your question, it's both. So you want to have a profile for your law firm, but also optimize and have a profile for each of the individual attorneys, because each attorney has their own strengths and things that they specialize in. And specialize is kind of an interesting term in PI. Some folks say that you can't necessarily say that you have a specialty in something unless you're board certified. And Kathy MacArthur, she's the founder of MacArthur Law Firm. She's quadruple board certified. And that has been, I mean, that's huge. Most lawyers are not board certified. Most lawyers maybe don't even understand exactly what a certification is, but it's the way that she described it. It's basically like taking a second bar exam. And she's got board certifications in truck accidents, medical malpractice, civil trial advocacy, and civil practice. And that has been huge in terms of our strategy for getting all of that inside of these listicles, Best Lawyers, Super Lawyers, AVO, and also communicating that on the website. But on top of that, kind of really building, her brand. And so, email newsletter, that's also something huge. We put our winnings in the email newsletter that goes to over 12,000 contacts, and that's lawyers, clients, judges, things of that nature. So I'd say it's both. Because if you just focus on the law firm, then you're kind of negating all of these other opportunities to pop up and to really share your expertise. And again, all the lawyers are going to bring in different expertise. I've got another lawyer who's very heavily involved with, there's a Healthy Babies, Healthy Mothers group here. And, that's something that we'll push as well. But she builds a lot of her network through these kinds of things. And so if we don't make the best use of that, then it's, almost what's the point? And this is just when it comes to ranking and building your brand on the internet. Like I've told people, now we're not just marketing to our potential clients, we're also marketing to these large language models.
That's really, really interesting. I think you're 100% right that, and this is potentially something overlooked by a lot of law firms, is that you have to be building personal brand for your individual attorneys, as well as the authority for the law firm, but those two things go hand in hand. And the more that you're able to build out that individual authority and brand for those individual attorneys, the more that you boost the overall authority of the firm. So that's really, really interesting, and something which I think if you're doing, puts you ahead of your competition for the firms that aren't doing it. And they're going to have to step up the game, especially with, it's quite a unique proposition, I think, isn't it? Law firms are businesses. It's like these individual superstars within that firm, and that's what people are looking for. Individual personal injury lawyer that can help me. I'm looking for that person as opposed to that firm. So that's really interesting. You mentioned Forbes being a different beast when it comes to listicles. We know listicles can be a pay to play. And for those that are listening, we have to somewhat separate our strategies when we're thinking about LLM strategy and Google strategy. So if you were doing some outreach to get some backlinks and a website said, yeah, you can have a backlink from this website, but you need to pay, that's not something that you would want to do because you'll be in a breach of terms of service of Google. A lot of other people would have purchased links from that website. It'd be putting you in a bad neighborhood. It could be toxic, yada, yada, yada. Whereas LLMs, if you reach out to be included in a listicle, you don't want the link, you want the brand mention. So as long as you're not getting a link, then paying for that brand mention is not going against anyone's terms of service. And if it's a good website with trust and authority, it is essentially going to be putting you as a surfaced recommendation inside of the LLM. So that's a really important factor. You mentioned Forbes, you mentioned pay to play. I'm interested if you could dive into that.
Yeah. So just from some research, in terms of ChatGPT, Forbes is one of the number one ways that it will recommend you and put you out there. And Forbes, they've got a ton of things, right? They've got Forbes Advisor, there's Forbes kind of on a more national level and Forbes on a more international level. And I know that they're doing some outreach as well for kind of on the local end standpoint, but there was one article that came out from Forbes Advisor, and it was Atlanta's top 10 personal injury lawyers. And I've done some independent research as well. And, I'll Google who is Atlanta's best personal injury lawyer. And Kathy comes up at the top. And this is just ChatGPT. It depends on which LLM you're talking about, right? Because you'll go on Copilot, it'll produce a slightly different result. Claude, slightly different result. Perplexity, maybe a different result, but it literally told me where it was kind of getting that from, and it was Forbes. Now Forbes is, they're not necessarily something for lawyers and legal marketing in a way that Super Lawyers is, but it's something that's been super helpful, and people have mentioned it several times. Now, how long that's going to play to our advantage, who knows? But it's kind of a good case study into different avenues that we can take and what we can do. And you'll look into it and, okay, how did that Forbes list categorize these 10 lawyers? And it's still the same thing. It's the results that they've produced for clients. And how does the Forbes know about it? It's because it's on the website. It's easily accessible on the website. It's something that we're publishing constantly. If you get a good large settlement or result, post about it. But something that I've changed a lot in terms of just a strategy for showing results here is a lot of lawyers will just give, a graphic, it looks beautiful, and it says the result, and that's it. I'm really big on humanizing those case results and really just talking about the people behind it. So for example, one of our largest historic results was for the death of an unborn but viable child. And that was a record-breaking verdict for medical malpractice here in Atlanta. And you best believe that we took that, did a press release on the website. I also reached out to local news sources, so some earned media, and we got on various news sources for this, the Daily Report being one of them, which is, they do it digitally, but it's also a newspaper, and it's for lawyers, trial lawyers specifically. Compound on what you've achieved, but see if you can make the most of it in terms of PR as well. Reach out to local news sources or news sources that are a little bit more niche. It doesn't hurt. They're either going to say yes or no. But if they say yes and you get that media, get it on the website. If there's a video component, it's really, really important to download that video, get it on your YouTube, because you don't know if it's going to be out there anymore. But again, just making the most of every single result. We also put it on our Google My Business profile, which has been huge, and also informs the large language models, but our clients as to the results that we're achieving. Because, I heard evergreen content is dead in the era of of AEO. And that's because a lot of the sources that get cited, they're recent, within the last 6 months or so. But playing back onto the results thing, if you're constantly posting about your results pretty much everywhere, it keeps you fresh. It keeps you fresh pretty much everywhere for the clients, and also for the bots.
That makes sense. Yeah, definitely. I like that. Okay, so you also mentioned Google there, Google business profile. So we know local SEO obviously is huge. We know that living and breathing inside of that Google business profile is essential. Are you tracking your leads and conversions from the map pack? Like, what is that local SEO strategy? You mentioned about producing a lot of content, but I'm specifically talking about Google now. What's driving that appearance in the map pack, and what is driving that visibility inside of Google?
So yeah, definitely optimizing that Google My Business profile. So getting high quality pictures on there, posting on it regularly. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like a completely new channel. If you're already posting on social media or posting on the website, you can essentially convert that into a nice post for your Google My Business profile. We did do some LSA, some PPC historically. Now, it wasn't something that was necessarily fruitful. It did not provide any more leads than what we were doing on organic. And that's kind of why we decided to go into interactive CTV ads in terms of paid lead generation channels. But I know we'll get to that shortly here. And another thing, you can't forget YouTube. Google owns YouTube, and kind of uploading on there frequently, whether it's a short or, again, if you garnered some media and you're downloading that video, putting it on there, but also really just taking our practice area pages and really, really developing them. So there's a lot of information out there, a lot of FAQs, but something that's been helpful is, some schema markup, organization schema, person schema, really just talking about person schema, optimizing those lawyer bios. Because again, someone's Googling who's the best law firm, bam. Then they go in and they start to look at your individual attorneys. And the pages that get a lot of traffic are those attorney bio pages. So our founder, our partners, and really just making it look good, but also making it information that's relevant and that's easy for Google to kind of pick up. So we basically just kind of organized all of the information in the bios, meaning we got the CV. If they received any sort of awards or anything, it's on there as well. Case results on there as well. And we also have some video testimonials that have been super helpful as well. Again, making the most of those video testimonials. We'll do a blog post. We'll have them on our testimonial website, and they're easily viewable by anybody on the internet. They're obviously on our YouTube as well. So that's been super duper helpful. But back to overall content, something that's been helpful is the TLDR kind of at the top of the page. Too long, don't read. And just providing summaries that are kind of optimized for voice, because they're talking to these AI, and the responses are more conversational. And so we're not necessarily writing, again, the old school way, legalese, just trying to stuff keywords in there, information that's actually helpful for people after a car accident. So anyway, that was kind of a long-winded answer. I hope
that's great. Yeah, that's great. I love that. I think it all falls into the remit of just like proper marketing. Like you said, long gone are the days where you could just keyword stuff a page and hope to rank, or you could rank and, you'd get traffic. Like now we have to, scream from the rooftops about awards, accolades. That has to be structured properly across pages. Things need to be produced to a high standard, and that needs to be multi-channel as well, not just like your website. And you seem to be doing that, and it seems to be working. So, and I can see why. One thing I am interested in, you talk about the social strategy, producing YouTube content as well. What has that been a challenge to get very, very busy lawyers to get behind the camera? Like, how has that looked? And are you able to operate that social strategy or that social content strategy with any sort of consistency?
Absolutely. So you brought up a really interesting point. Yes, it is very, very hard to get content from your lawyers. That said, I don't just want to produce any piece of content. So it's about building campaigns. So a big campaign that we had recently is the Trial Lawyer series. So, that's a big part of our brand. We are trial lawyers. And so I wanted to kind of create an arc to where we had a video series that lined up with what a week was like at trial. And a week at trial, it starts off very similarly. Voir dire, which is jury selection, day one. Day two, opening statements. Day three, you've got direct examination, cross-examination, day four, and then closing arguments, day five. So basically I took that and I structured it into a limited series, and I kind of laid out the concept and the brief. And I said, hey guys, this is kind of what we're doing, made assignments for each of the lawyers to cover certain parts. And in terms of capturing the content, it was really just one day. Lighting is key. You have to have really good lighting. You have to have really good audio, and really just getting it on the schedule, but doing a big content block. So really it took about 30 to 45 minutes per lawyer, but that produced 4 to sometimes 7 shorts for social media. And they were edited well, but something that I want to kind of call attention to is not just posting a ton of videos randomly, limited series, just to kind of make sense of it, really. And it kind of becomes a content library that you can then use on other channels. So we already covered it on social media, but you can also upload it to YouTube Shorts, and YouTube loves consistency, and you don't necessarily need to, post it all at once. It's just capturing the content, editing it, and then kind of getting it out there. Another campaign that we're running are case x-rays. So it's basically just like a small mini case study. And I'm calling them case x-rays because it kind of lines up with our brand. It's personal injury, but really I just want to get to the bare bones of the case. But this is just another example of the lawyers are already doing the work. We're already getting really good results for our clients. How can we convert that into content that keeps us relevant on the internet? And so really it's just deep diving into these results, into these cases. But the effects of that are twofold. We're communicating with a potential client who has a similar issue. We're also communicating that we know what we're doing. It's trust, and also, relevancy and consistency for the internet. They can kind of see what we're doing, and keep the results fresh and the work that we're doing fresh, and kind of putting that out there and making that part of the strategy, as opposed to, again, just random videos that don't coordinate with each other, and then it's hard to keep brand integrity. But if you have a really good idea, the limited series, get the brief together, make sure that there's no conflicts for court or trial, get it on the calendar, and then record as much as you can in that one setting. But you can usually, again, make use of that in multiple ways. And shorts are key. We don't do a lot of long form content. Long form content is really good for niches, and if that's kind of what you're doing. For lawyers, it's shorts. Shorts are kind of the way to go, again, because we can record it in one sitting, and then the creative can be used in multiple different ways, cut up without their involvement.
I'm going to have to check out your YouTube channel. It sounds great. Some of those series, like The Good Wife or something. Brilliant. Yeah, that's really good. And yeah, producing social stuff with a purpose as opposed to just to serve a purpose. Yeah, produce it, and the whole repurposing as well is great. Some really great stuff there. Okay, so I've been really excited to get to this now. So paid, you said, didn't do much for you against organic in terms of, what was it, Google PPC, something like that you splashed some cash on, didn't get much ROI. But one thing that has worked for you is something called CCTV. Is that correct?
ICTV, so interactive connected TV.
Okay.
Ads.
Can you walk us through that? Like, where does that live? What platforms? How does it work? And what does the ROI look like?
Yeah. Just a quick point on our Google ads and why that wasn't helping so much. As I mentioned before, Atlanta is a highly saturated market for personal injury. If we're trying to battle on the paid side, we're battling people with $1 million budgets. And the way that our law firm works, it's not necessarily a volume firm, it's a boutique firm. We handle very specific cases at the serious catastrophic, or wrongful death level. And so I really wanted to kind of optimize our ad spend, and look at something that was a lot more targeted. And so that's where ICTV ads come in. There's the targeting is kind of on a next level. So really what interactive CTV ads are, let's, I guess, back up a little. What is CTV? CTV is connected TV. So anything that's not the cable. So Netflix,
Okay.
Hulu, Pluto TV, Samsung TV. There's a ton of them out there. And really, that's the way most people are consuming TV nowadays. You add in the AI element to it. With that, you're able to set parameters that are a little bit more specific than anything that you can do in Google. So, for example, demographic is key, line of work. But if they're looking up or searching injured in an accident, what to do? I'm having trouble covering my medical bills. I'm out of work right now. I was injured. What do I do? And then there's another layer of it where you can target very specific zip codes. You can also target people's, like the financial side of it, like how much they're making, what they do for work. So we're targeting a lot of commuters that are already kind of on the road, but it's been super interesting. So the interactive component of it is, instead of just a static ad, there's kind of a voting element. So people will see, one of the questions that we have is, again, after the folks that have been targeted. So we're already talking to roughly an audience that is going to need potentially a personal injury case. So then there's a voting element. So one of the questions that I've got is, are any of these happening to you? And the answers, there's 4 answers. Insurance giving me trouble. Medical bills are piling up. Lost work because I'm injured in an accident. And people, again, interact with it. Even if they don't have interest to it, that interactive component is already garnering more attention than an ad that people just kind of can skip. And it's kind of interesting. Oh,
is it with their remote control that they would like answer that question?
yeah,
Like with the Netflix
absolutely.
remote? Okay, right.
And then, but that's not it though. There's also really good video that we've got that kind of plays along with it as well. And then there is also secondary targeting on display as well. And the display is really, really interesting because what we're using is kind of like a 3D cube, and it's a little hard to explain, but people can kind of interact with it. And at each side of the cube, there's there's some about our case results. There's also, gosh, I forgot to talk about the QR code on our main on our main CTV ads.
Right.
Back to the CTV ads on TV, there's also a QR code, so people can easily scan it and then go directly to our website. But again, on the display end, it's just kind of an interesting view beyond just your regular, 1D kind of ad. But I always say attention is the biggest currency right now. We're fighting for attention kind of all over the place. And because badly done AI is seen a lot in the content that's produced right now. And what I mean by badly done AI is AI without a human hand. It's all about the prompt. But people are seeing that, and there's sort of kind of ad fatigue. And so if you add this interactive element, it breaks that up a little bit and kind of, bring someone's attention back to what you're marketing.
Yeah, and do you have like a form of lead capture there as well? Like if they scan the QR code, are they putting in their email address, and then are you putting them into some sort of funnel, or are you just trying to close them onto a call? Like how does that look?
Yeah, so that the QR code goes directly to the contact form of our website. But in terms of tracking, I've got pixel tagging on the actual QR code, so we can test attribution that way. And with who I use right now, they're working on like IP address tracking as well, just for attribution. I will say a note on attribution. It is really, really difficult in a lot of domains, but in personal injury specifically, because you ask people how they found us. A lot of them just say the website. There's no way that our MacArthur Law Firm website just popped into these people's brains. It's, different touch points. So we are tracking it. The campaign is relatively new. It's been out for about a month, and we're very specifically targeting auto accidents and truck accidents. And we have seen a significant rise in our car accident cases. Sometimes they close from there. Sometimes it's from when we kind of follow them around on the display side. But that's, again, for people who have shown interest on the actual ad, CTV ad.
Okay. No, that's super interesting. I'm sure a lot of people listening will be diving in to look at those. Okay. Well, Trizna, I mean, this has been like fantastic. As we're coming towards the end, is there anything which you are excited about, nervous about in terms of marketing for personal injury law firms for the rest of 2026 and going into the future?
Something I'm excited about, AI agents are becoming a huge thing. And that's something that I've kind of been looking into just for my purposes for marketing. But something that I heard recently is that, coding, it's not necessarily, I guess, like teaching these AI agents your brain, essentially. Beyond the coding of it. But it's something that I personally am interested in. What scares me about it is that it's just like the prompts, it's all about the prompt. It's all about the input that you give it. And so I'm seeing a lot of trends pick up on that just from the operations side as well. AI agents kind of taking over just to cover the operational aspects of it, anything that's kind of repetitive. But the idea of inputting my brain into one of these agents to then produce work that is similar in terms of what I can produce. That's something that I think is interesting, but adoption is always going to be difficult. Again, there's a lot of work that has to be done on the front end. Same thing with an AI agent operating in a law firm. You have to have your systems in place before you can introduce any sort of AI or agents. And if they're not written out and a standard of practice that's clear, then you have no hopes to scale with an AI agent.
Are you getting any, because I'm the same with you, like obviously we run a marketing agency. I'm obsessed with I'm bouncing between Claude Code and ChatGPT's Codex, but I don't completely understand exactly what it is that I can't fully grasp it. And I've just built a repurposed pipeline in one tool. It's not quite doing what I want. And then I'll see a YouTube video from some influencer who says, this is the, brand new thing. And it's like a sense of overwhelm that we're not doing enough. But then I read a really good post from someone recently who said hey, look, just master one form of AI, you'll be 99% ahead of the population. The adoption is still slow, and you gotta, like you said, build your systems and really get to understand it and make sure it's delivering what you want. So do you get a sense of that as well? And how do you stay away from that shiny object syndrome?
Yeah, I definitely get a sense of that. It is a little intimidating because the end product of anything like that would be to make your day a little simpler, a little bit more optimized. However, there is a lot of work that kind of has to go on the front end. And if it's not done right, then it's going to be even more work in the future because now you're having to police the AI or the agent, whatever you're kind of looking into. But I've actually been getting into Claude. ChatGPT and Copilot, they were my top favorites last year. But, now it's what I find interesting about Perplexity and Claude in particular is just the language that it produces. It's a little bit more creative. And I'm always telling my, 2 or 3 prompts later, make this sound more human, take out all of the fluffy words, things of that nature. But the goal with sort of an AI agent is to kind of reduce that friction. And so the output that is produced, it's a little bit better. But again, it starts on paper. It starts before that, getting your systems in place, figuring out where the bottlenecks are, and how you can actually kind of optimize. But something I love actually is Whisper. I always dictate to text.
Yeah.
Whisper. Have you heard of Whisper?
I've got VoiceInc. So I had Whisper and moved to VoiceInc. They had a life about. Yeah, I'm the same. I couldn't live without voice to text now on my keyboard, on my phone. I love it.
Yeah. And I think it's about using it, right? Using technology that'll make your life simpler. Yeah, there might be some adoption pains, but if you've got your systems in place and you're actually documenting your workflow, from there, maybe you can see how to optimize it, and it'll be a little bit less daunting, if you will. But I like what you said about kind of mastering one, picking something and kind of mastering it.
It's exciting times. I think we just have to keep focused and don't spend too much time watching the influencers on YouTube tell you that the latest and greatest new insane thing has just been released. Trizna, this has been an absolute pleasure. If people want to hunt you down or get in touch, where's the best places that they can go?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, just linkedin.com/Trizna. I'm on Instagram as well. It's a little embarrassing, honestly, Chris. I'm all about consistency on social media and showing up and developing your brand. I don't do that a lot in my personal media. So the latest photos you'll find on there are just some pictures that I've captured out in the wild. But I'd say LinkedIn and Instagram. I do have some plans to kind of come back and develop my personal brand a little bit further on social media.
You need to get those agents working at full capacity. Did you say you've got the LinkedIn handle just /Trizna? That's pretty cool.
Instagram is definitely /Trizna.
You must have been an early adopter of the socials then to have grabbed that hand
Yeah,
up.
especially Instagram.
Yeah.
I love that it's just Trizna. Okay, so
Yeah.
it might have my last name too, actually. So Trizna /Trizna Baños. So TriznaBanos.
Okay, but Insta's just Trizna. That's awesome.
Insta's just Trizna. Yes.
Trizna, thank you so much for being such an awesome guest. And hopefully we'll get to speak to you again soon. Thank you.
Yes, likewise. Thank you so much, Chris. Hopefully I provide at least one nugget of value to one of our listeners out there.
Most definitely. Thanks, Trizna.
All right. Thank you.